So the second episode of Darwin's Game has arrived, and in this week's episode we get more information into what they called the D game. Actually quite a bit of information, which I was actually pleasantly surprised with, and of course we have, I'd say, a good half of the episode dedicated to more slice-of-life downtime, a lot more typical anime scenes, and I don't think that's going to surprise too many people based on how episode 1 did end, with a naked girl waking up in her main character's bed. I mean, that didn't really come to a shock to me, as I kind of assumed that it wasn't just going to be insane death games. There was probably going to be some pretty typical and recognizable anime sequences, and this episode definitely had it. But to my surprise, I still really enjoyed this episode. And typically when you have scenes with, like, you know, you're surrounded by a death game, you're surrounded by a very dangerous situation, and then you have characters going shopping, like, that isn't typically things that entertain me or I enjoy. And though I wouldn't necessarily say, like, the best part of Darwin's Game are the simplistic moments, I was surprisingly not bored by them. They somehow made me okay watching them because I knew how interesting this world was, especially the Darwin's Game. And it's like, okay, I know eventually we're going to get back into this game, and in some ways, in a weird sort of way, the idea of having characters being able to be more normal and mundane, because there are actual ways within this game to actually limit yourself from being exposed to battles, it kind of works in its favor. So you can have those, like, very typical scenes that pretty much you can recognize if you see more than 50 anime. You have those basic scenes where characters are walking, interacting with each other. It's a template. People typically either roll their eyes at it or they completely eat it all up. And usually I roll my eyes at it, but for some reason, I think it is because of how interested I am in this world. Those scenes, they didn't bother me because I knew this isn't what this anime is built off of. Like, these may not be scenes, like, targeted towards me, but the overall idea of its world, its battle mechanics absolutely are. So it's not like this is one of those anime that just kind of relies on cliches and tropes to keep people engaged. No, there's actually some interesting world mechanics at play. So even though, like, half of this episode was really content that wasn't targeted towards me, I wasn't bored by it. I was able to watch it. You know, I got a couple of laughs out of the little date-like moments, and most of it was just kind of like, okay, I know a lot of people are probably going to love this stuff, a lot of people probably hate this stuff. For me, I was able to watch it and I wasn't bored by it, which is all I really asked for. And then when they really focused in on the mechanics, I was just having a field day. I was loving that stuff. Because honestly, the thing that is setting Darwin's Game apart from a lot of, like, battle royale, like, kill 'em all death games is, like, the overall depth that they're going into a little mobile app that actually feels well thought out. Because you would really think to yourself, why would people want to join this willingly? And there's obviously going to be those characters like Kaname who just open up an app not knowing that it's an actual death game, right? Of course you're going to have those characters, and you're going to have characters who are just psychopaths and enjoy killing. You expect that. But there's got to be people who willingly knew what it was. They aren't insane people, but they had some sort of drive to join it. And based on the little things that you get, like, holy shit, you can exchange a few points and your bank account will change from 50,000 yen to 1,000,000 yen. Just imagine that even though you knew that you were going to become a murderer, you still had the chance of becoming a millionaire, like actually setting yourself up for life should you succeed in this game. There'd be so many ways for characters, either in a bad situation or just stuck in a dead-end job or something like that, and, like, an opportunity arrives. Like, you've probably heard of questions like, hey, if you had a big red button, if you pressed it, you'll get $1 million, but somewhere in the world, someone will die randomly. There's always been, like, that topic, like, would you push the button? And this is kind of like that, but kind of cranked up a notch, where you actually have to put your own life on the line, and whether it be for power, whether it be for fame, whether it be for money, like, this system is designed to keep people there, whether you enjoy the thrill of the kill, or you're just someone trying to improve your own life. And I think that's really interesting. The idea that they can interact with their world and have a seemingly normal life, but when you face an opponent, whether you get challenged or you get thrown into a treasure hunt, as episode 3 is going to dive into, which I'm incredibly excited for. I think the idea of the little mini-game kind of activity quest, I guess is how you could call it, I think that's going to be really fun. So I really enjoy that. I love seeing how these characters, when they're in the middle of either facing off against an opponent or just talking to them casually, you know at any moment something bad could truly happen. And it's really interesting to see the difference in how these characters act, whether they're in a life or death situation compared to going shopping with their probably future girlfriend. And usually I'd actually be pretty bothered by this, but kind of similar to how these situations, they're not necessarily designed for me, but they did at the very least entertain me. It's actually, in some ways, it works in its favor while also you could obviously criticize it and I'd understand it. But the idea that they can have a seemingly normal life, and especially like you can buy things for like 10 points, which will like keep you safe for a week, but if you face to face with someone, you're still gonna have to fight them. Like, there's obviously ways for characters to go about their day-to-day life and not have to worry. And also, there are just lunatics out there who really won't feel worried because they enjoy the thrill of this game. So the idea that they can have a seemingly normal life, and they act a lot more tropey, a lot more cliche, and a lot more like standard anime characters, it is something that's not necessarily for me, but it does in some ways work in the game's favor because the game isn't sucking you in and trapping you there for 24/7. Like, you can think of a lot of the trapped in the video game anime. Like, they are literally designed, until you beat the game, you can't go back to your normal self. So the idea that you can kind of walk this thin line of being like, you're obviously scared for your life, you're obviously confused and afraid, but you can also just be okay. And when you have a girl who's as insanely powerful as Shuka, like, obviously there's reasons why he could be a little more basic and a little more cliche. I'm not saying people have to love it for that. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people who are going to roll their eyes at this episode. But for me, I didn't roll my eyes. I was actually entertained all the way through. But obviously my main focus, my meat and potatoes of this episode, was the mechanics and the world building. I really think that this anime is designed to really keep your focus on the world building, and then obviously its action set pieces, which are actually really well animated. There's a couple of glimpses of new characters that we didn't really see before, and just the way they were punching and just their overall like body reactions were really solid. And anytime we've seen action up to this point throughout these 2 episodes, they're really well animated, and there's a lot of like reactions and just subtle details that I feel like a lot of times in a battle royale, a battle anime, a death game anime, they kind of just go with like flash, like a lot of explosions or sparks or, you know, just very anime designed effects. But the idea that there's actually a lot of reaction to contact on contact with bodies is something that I think is going to add a lot of depth to this. And when characters do get fatally wounded or just outright killed, as you can see at the end of the episode, a girl fell to her death, and just goddamn was that brutal, I have to say. I actually really do enjoy how they detail their gore, as I mentioned with my first impressions, because it doesn't go so far in that it feels edgy, but it also gives you enough of a reason to fear this game the same way a character like Kaname would. And yeah, I mean, he's definitely been doing good. I mean, he's now won 3 battles, and 2 have actually forfeited because they realize, okay, you actually got me. But I do like how there actually is like this partnership and like the idea of clans, and you have to be a certain rank before you can create your own clan. Obviously it plays into the whole like little romance trope of like, oh, I want you to be the one leading me into this. Of course, that's not going to be for everyone. Some people are going to roll their eyes at that, but it's not something that bugs me, so I'm not going to criticize it, because it was just something that's like, okay, it's kind of cute, it's kind of like predictable, you've seen it before, but I love the world so much that it's like, it's not like this anime is solely built on the whole like flirtatious nature of our 2 central pairing. Like, the world building and mechanics overall are so goddamn interesting to me, and actually are taking ideas that I've seen sort of done before with different anime, but are actually sticking the landing and actually feeling like they're doing something interesting with the idea rather than falling flat on its face. I've seen a lot of comparisons of like, oh, it kind of feels like this anime mixed with this anime, and yeah, you can always say that, but the difference with Darwin's game is how, rather than it feeling just like those other anime, like you can say, oh, it kind of feels like a Mirai Nikki or this and that, it actually feels like the overall world and the way this game is designed, it actually feels like something that had a lot of thought and planning put into it. So it feels like, should a world like ours, you know, get something like this, it actually feels like all the bases are covered. It feels like it could be a functioning death game, as insane as that may sound. I think one of the most interesting details that I wasn't thinking about was the idea of their phones. If you lose your phone, you're kind of shit out of luck. You wouldn't be able to use your map, you wouldn't be able to buy things. And imagining, should you lose your phone and like you're in the middle of a death game, how would you get out of that predicament? And I like the idea that Kaname thought on his feet and took the phone away from this new character and was threatening to destroy it. And yes, maybe that wouldn't have worked and he may have gotten killed or something like that had his new partner in crime not showed up. But still, like, I do enjoy how Kaname in battle or in the middle of thinking about this world is a very different character to Kaname in the general slice of life. He blushes, he gets embarrassed. Yes. We know what that is. But I do like how, in battle, these characters are so interesting, and rather than this feeling like one of those anime where it's just like the action is what makes it interesting, the action is really good, it's really interesting, and I enjoy it overall. But the thing that really just keeps sucking me in is I always think about the mechanics. And that's all I'm asking for with this anime. I'm not asking for this to be a written masterpiece that's going to have 10 out of 10 character development and all this kind of fun stuff. Rather, I just want these characters to feel good in the overall, basically Darwin's game, this D game, and have a lot of world building and explanation on how things are operating and how they come to, you know, expose plans or overcome obstacles, because that is what's going to make this anime interesting all the way to the home stretch. which is episode 11, as it's technically 12 episodes, but because episode 1 was double length, it's going to be 11 episodes. And that's all I really want, and I'm sure there's going to be some people who will watch Darwin's Game, they'll call it trashy, they'll call it, a bunch of names, and rightfully so if that's not something that you enjoy. And you can look at what I review on in any given anime season. This isn't typically something that I come up here to review. But I love the world, I really do, and these characters when they're a part of a game or just really in a situation that feels tense as if, holy shit, something bad could happen, I really just get sucked in, and then when they pull me out and they just have a casual romance, banter, slice of life shenanigans, it feels like, even though it's very basic, it's very familiar, it's something that at any moment could explode and be so goddamn frightening. And when you have a rookie who's now won 3 battles, the idea of more people, taking notice, being like, what is going on with this guy? And the idea that you have like this analyst who just basically sells her services and just is kind of like playing the field with everyone. Like, there's so many ways for characters in this story to really go in interesting directions, whether you're more hot-headed or you're more of a charismatic kind of asshole. You have someone who's selling their services and kind of playing the field with everyone, probably waiting for her chance to basically win the game. There's just so many ways for this app mechanics in terms of just like random timed events where if you're a part of the D game, you're gonna get sucked in, like they got all teleported separately. Obviously, we're gonna have our 2 central characters try to meet up, but still, like, Kaname could easily get put into a situation where he meets like 3 characters, they're all fighting to the death. And how is he going to overcome that? Because as of right now, his arsenal is a stun gun and a pistol. Yeah, they're decent weaponry, but still, he is a newbie, and the only reason he's really won up to this point is either because outside help, like with this episode, the idea of a girl who was actually just kind of impressed and kind of sold her services there, and then of course you have just a series of unfortunate events that kind of led to someone's death there. Like, the combat's fun, the world's fun, and the characters off and on can be really interesting or just kind of good enough to watch on screen and not feel bored by, and that's really all I'm asking for this anime. I'm not asking for it to be a masterpiece, I'm just asking for its world to continue to hook me as much as it is, and so far it's doing a great job at that. But what did everyone feel about episode 2 of Darwin's Game? Did you love it? Did you hate? Your favorite moment? Least favorite moment? Whatever you feel, and do let me know. And be sure to like the video if you did enjoy, and remember to hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time everyone, please take care and have a good one.